Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, day 17, MarchToStartup. I'm dropping out of my PhD in 6 months, June 2020, June already, not June 2024. And so today's day 17. Yesterday, I made the decision to finally drop out. And let's see, so I recorded that video yesterday, but I have it scheduled to post tomorrow. So January today's January 3rd. And I'm essentially adding this gap in my videos. I just wanted to let the channel breathe a little bit. I don't know if posting every day impacts viewership, how many people are going to our channels. Maybe waiting a day makes people want to tune in as soon as a video is posted. I don't know. Just want to see what kind of results that brings, especially with such a large video of finally deciding to drop out. Before I had a little bit of certainty, I was 98 to 99% certain, and I wanted to put in the hours and just make my decision very thorough, and essentially write a little report for myself, but also for future people who might be wondering why I dropped out, because it's a very valid concern when someone's dropping out. Maybe you didn't have it in you didn't have the passion, you're a quitter. That's all very valid concerns, and anything that I want to do in the future, if I'm doing a startup and all they see is videos of me saying I'm a dropout, I mean, very, very valid concern. So I made a little report for myself, but also for future people to reference, about why I made my decision. It's a very thorough decision from various aspects. So that happened yesterday. It's going live tomorrow, and as you can see, we're getting some momentum. When I started off, actually, this video is getting a lot of views. In relative to the other ones, I don't know why, but it is, especially when I had the least going for me. And so after that, we were getting some views, 10, 20, but not that much. Not that much. Something's happening here, starting to pop off a little bit. And actually, the reason that this started to pop off a little bit was because I finished my project management, task management vault. It's available on my GitHub. It's how I'm tracking my projects and my tasks. I'm using Getting Things Done. So if you're not familiar with that, it's very helpful. We're managing projects from overview, but also on a day-to-day, how do we take on those tasks? So that vault essentially helps you manage your projects and have a daily planner using Obsidian, free note-taking app, stored locally, not like Notion or Todoist. Very useful. And so I started marketing that. I packaged. So let's take a step back. During this whole process, I knew that I needed to get that system done so I could manage my projects. I'm still going to be in the PhD for the next 6 months to help the project grow some legs and stand when I leave. And I also need to provide myself some room to figure out what I'm going to do. And the first step that I needed to do was to plan out or make this system to manage my projects, tasks, and everything I need to do, because currently my previous system was bursting at the seams. And in that process, I knew this would be helpful to other people. So I approached it with the intention that I would package it for other people to use. And actually, one of my friends reached out, or I reached out to him, and we had a catch up, and he was basically telling me that he found this system helpful. It's bringing some organization to the projects that he's undertaking, and so that's cool to see. So I packaged that, and market it on Reddit. I even show a video, I think it was here, this one or this one, where I show the process I take to market that. And we can see the views are starting to pick up. For this particular video, I even marketed that on 3 Reddit posts. Has the most views of any of my videos, lots of likes. And as a result, this video is getting even more views than all of my previous videos. And so hopefully this one is similar to this one and doesn't just die down. I always have burps, I don't know why. Yeah, so that was yesterday. Today, I focused on... So with everything I do, it's essentially first, how do I figure this out for myself? Because I need to make the decision, or now that I made the decision, I need to figure out how to... With anything I do, it's the steps I'm taking are to get me to the point where I'm making 5K in passive income. That's my first goal. And once I figure, in the process of figuring that out, I know it's going to be helpful to other people. The different things that I'm doing are going to be helpful to different sets of people, maybe people that are in very similar situations to me. This is all going to be relevant to them. Regardless, every decision making, I need to make it, so I'm filming myself doing that. And in addition to that, I'm going to take the little extra step of how can I package this in a way that's helpful to other people and market that to also bring people in. So yesterday was recording myself, making that decision, 6 hours, really long. Maybe not that many people watch it. What can I do to market it and make it a little bit more digestible? Go through that process I made, the process I followed, in a summary and in a way that they can basically take that journey but in a more digestible manner. And then if they want to see, maybe they're stuck on something, they can go back to this video to the point where I was figuring out how do I set up these systems, what steps am I taking to make that decision. So I recorded myself going over this. From a brief summary, it's 45 minutes, maybe not as concise as I would have wanted to. I'm not scripting anything. My point is just to basically film in public like Sam Solik and be transparent. And really, I don't want to put too much effort in the sense that I don't want to be a content creator. I don't want to... I do want to create value, but I don't want to be known as a content creator. I'm not here to look pretty and cute for the camera. I'm just here to provide value in some videos, film myself, and attract the right people around me to help in my path, in my journey. So, recorded that video, 47 minutes. Some of it I had to pause and fix what I was saying. So right now I'm going through the process of editing it, just again being transparent, showing what I'm doing on a daily basis to get to my next spot. And so after I get that done, I'll probably inbox, make a post to grad school, PhD, and career transition on Reddit, bring in even a few more people, maybe post it on entrepreneurship. Once we make those posts, that's probably going to be tomorrow, then make another 6, 7, 8 hour long video where I'm starting to make a plan to reach 5K a month. Once I make that plan, market it. And then at that point, I'm going to take a step and actually think about how I can improve my videos. Because right now it's just been we're hitting the ground and we're running. I don't care about the camera quality. I do a little bit, but I mean, it's dark. I don't care. I'm just filming to show, to get momentum and to show the steps I'm taking. Yeah. But I do care about it being digestible, it being useful, and sometimes the best way is to improve camera quality and improve the background and improve how concise I am and all these different aspects. So that's something I'm going to consider at some point once I get through the main goals that I need to get through. So right now, let's just go to editing. Let's see, can you hear the difficult decision? Yeah, let's just turn it up a little bit. Difficult decisions, we all have to make them, but oftentimes we don't think through them enough. In this, I'm gonna turn it up just a little bit more. In this video, I'm going to cover the process I followed to decide to drop out. Yeah, hopefully that's... Now, the entire video of me going through this process and making that decision is also on YouTube, but it's over 6 hours long. So this is a perfect little summary if you don't want to go through that entire video. Now, although this process is most applicable to career transitions and decisions, it can also be generalized to other types of decisions, like buying a home, making an investment decision, etc. Yeah, so there's these points where I know what the next sentence is, but after that, if I try to just free wing it, I don't know what I'm gonna say. So I just take a pause it, see what my script is, and then come back to recording. So let's look over when I made this. This is a perfect generalized to other types of decisions, like buying a home, making an investment decision, etc. So let's look over the process. When I made this decision, first I wanted, let's write timestamps, new notes. Cool. So I'm also going to write timestamps, make this video a little bit more digestible. Where are we at? Oh, 44 seconds, I see. So 0, 0, 0, 0. Introduction. 44. Oh, wait, 0, 0. Oh, yeah. 0, 0, 44. There we go. What should I say? Because it's an intro, but it's intro background, let's say. My background for making this decision. My background. Yeah, let's just say my background. This is in particular just for YouTube. It's not necessarily something you should go through when making the decision, but although it might help. So right at the start of the video, I wanted to go over background information. This is just to give people a clear picture and be transparent about sort of what my background is and where I am and what position I am to make this decision. And because such a video of deciding to drop out can impact people in lots of different ways, and so it's always best to just preface it and be transparent. So now this is where the actual process starts of exploring of the actual process. 22. Process start. Possible outcomes. Possible, or let's say decisions. Their possible outcomes. So this is a process start, and we're looking at decisions and their possible outcomes. So now this is where the actual process starts of making a decision. And first is exploring all the possible outcomes or possible decisions that you want to make, and envisioning sort of what success looks like. What is something that what's the best possible outcome that can happen? And so for me, the first sort of manner of doing that was calculating for each possible path that I want to take, what does the financial compensation look like when making a career decision, such as whether I should do a PhD or wanting to do something else. It's very difficult to say that it's difficult to quantify how or predict how all the other areas of your life are going to look like, and basically the only solid piece of information that you can obtain is how much are you going to be compensated and how much are you going to have in your net worth by X amount of time. And so for my PhD, I basically split this up into 4 paths. First, if I continue my current PhD as is and then I spin off my healthcare project, what is the highest possible success that we can obtain, assuming that I exit out of that startup or that company in 10 years? And so to do that, I basically looked at similar companies in healthcare. And so in this particular instance, my project is a wound assessment project. So I looked at 3 similar projects, as well as other companies from my university that have been successful. And so this gives me sort of an average upper bound of what I can expect for 10 years. And so as a summary, I calculated that I would expect if I were to work on my PhD for 3 to 4 more years, and then exit out and and then graduate and then work on this company for 8 to 10 more years, I would expect around 1.2 to 4.8 million if I sold this company in 10 to 14 years. Let's see. I say 2 to 4 million, 14 million. Wait, did I fudge that? 10 to 20%. Oh, did I? Yeah, I fudged those numbers. Let's see, does it change anything though? So I say 10 to 20%. If we're exiting out of a startup, we're doing 15 to 52 million. So that means at 20%, let's go over that. 2 times 15, 3. And then, I'm just using the healthcare one. 0.2 times 52 is 10.4. And then doing 4 million times 0.6%, 60% is how much we're keeping. And 4 million then is equal to 11.4 times 60%, 6.8. Oh yeah, we did fudge that. 2.4, 6.84. And taking the average is equal to this plus this is equal to this divided by 2. 4.62. Interesting. And that is, oh wow. 4, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3. Then let's see, how did we get it normalized though? I'll normalize this. Let's actually record this. ChatGPT, I just gave it the numbers and I assume it's standardizing. To maintain the relative differences, which is what we want. Can you standardize these values? I realize made mistakes calculating this. I don't think it's going to change much, but I just want to have updated numbers. I want on a 1 to 10 scale. It's to be on a 1 to 10. Is it just gonna make no PhD 1? Let's see. Sure, let's try that. I mean, it seems reasonable. It's almost like 1.5 times greater than these. 4 times, or 2 to 3 times bigger than this. So it's preserving relative times. Yeah, it seems to preserve relative distance. So 10. That's a plot twist no one expected. 6.97. But that's assuming the best. And the chance of a company succeeding is not that high. Let's see what happens. That is crazy. Oh wow. It makes it a clear winner, but like everything else just completely dropped. So let's see. Here, all these numbers. It's all these numbers. No, I'm just gonna have to. Jeez. I thought there was a way to do this. Pay special. I guess not. We'll just have to do it manual. 1.8 3000 3.36 4.26. Cool. Now I need to adjust everything. Surprisingly, but not really. This shows surprisingly. Now this is surprisingly. Surprisingly, this shows that the highest earnings potential lies in pursuing my current path. However, this analysis assumes my startup will succeed and the analysis is limited to just an accident, and any period after is filled with uncertainty. So the weighted decision matrix now says that no PhD is why do you do this to me? Just have to do old school. 596.7 corporate for 4 PhD plus corporate 62 point PhD plus ruin 53 4.5. It doesn't, so the rankings themselves did not change, but the clarity of the decision did change. The gap between no PhD and everything else is so much wider now. Followed by the and then taking corporate job. Yeah, the rest is okay. So we did have to make that adjustment, but that's fine. Didn't change sort of the crux or the thought process. I would expect around 1.2 to 4.8 million if I sold this company in 10 to 14 years. Now, this is the current path I'm on. The next path is if I do a PhD and I would end up having to change the product I'm working on, but let's say I do my PhD and then I go into corporate, work at a place like OpenAI. So 3 years for my PhD, maybe 4, work at OpenAI, somewhere. This is again best possible outcome. I get accepted into OpenAI, where salary is around $1 million. That means in 10 years, I would expect the net worth of around $4.2 million. Now, that's with a PhD. The other option is no PhD. I can either pursue corporate job or entrepreneurship, and so we'll define entrepreneurship, but corporate is essentially working at like Amazon or some other tech company. Given my background, electrical engineering, computer science, this is corporate tech company. So working at a tech company for 8 years, around $2 million on average. This isn't like expecting high, like a very good job. This is just an average sort of job, around 200K a year. A little more maybe, actually. And the other option is entrepreneurship. And so this is very broad. It can it can literally be I'm working at McDonald's while I'm trying to work on an idea, which isn't what I want to do. But it's something I do need to define. However, I'm not defining it here because that would make this just too much of a rabbit hole. And we want to just be clear and make our decisions. And so for this, it's unbounded, but it's also unknown. I could have a billion-dollar startup, but I could not, and I just completely flail and doesn't go anywhere. So unbounded, but it's unknown. So that's the best possible outcomes, and in the way that we can quantify it, so we're going by financial decision or financial compensation. So now that we've calculated the financial aspect, there's other financial compensation. So now that we've calculated the financial aspect, by financial decision or financial compensation. So now that we've calculated the financial aspect, there's other aspects we need to consider when making a decision like this. And in this particular case, these are the criterion that I wanted to judge each path by. And these are criterion that I care about. And there's lots of other ones that I decided to ignore that I really didn't care about. So let's look at these criterion. My first one was whatever I do, it needs to have some sort of entrepreneurial opportunity. I've been putting it off for way too long. I care about that now. Secondly, I care about financial compensation. I want to be. Secondly, I care about financial compensation. I want to be to judge each. We've calculated the. So now 630 weighted decision matrix. Now we've calculated the now I care about financial compensation. I want to be able to pay for my living expenses. I want to be able to pay for my living expenses. I don't want to be broke anymore. So I care about financial compensation. I also care about innovation. I don't just want to be a hustler selling tennis shoes, sneakers, or whatever you want to call them. But I need whatever I'm doing. It needs to provide some. It needs to be innovative and provide some sort of benefit to people. I want it to have networking potential. I don't want to just sort of stay in the same spot. I want to be able to keep moving up in what I'm developing and be able to reach more people. So for that, I need a network. I need a team. I want to have some autonomy. I don't necessarily want. I have enough initiative that I can decide sort of the pace that I attack or pursue efforts, and I want to be able to do that sort of with my strategy and at the pace I want to set. Stress levels, and here I want to be clear. Stress levels for me means actual stress, not eustress, which is positive stress. Stress levels in the sense of it's impacting my ability to be productive and efficient. So stress levels. Flexibility, I like to be able to work again at my pace, which is actually can be pretty fast, but for that I need to sort of meet. I need to be able to work when I want, and to say that I'm limiting myself to just 9 to 5, it doesn't, for me, isn't very productive. Also, commuting time. With whatever I do, I find myself commuting 45 minutes one way. That's already taking 2 hours out of my day, and that really, again, kills the number of productive hours I have in a day. Work-life balance, this is more in the sense of it's a little bit in the sense of flexibility, in the sense that I want to be able to exercise in the morning. So maybe I start my day a little bit later, and I want to be able to decide my hours, which means that on Tuesdays, for example, let's say I always want to be able to spend some time with my wife. Now, this means that I don't want to be available for on-calls at this time on this day. And so being able to set sort of those boundaries for myself, I want to have that decision. So that's, for me, what work-life balance means. But I am open to working 8, 9, 10 hours a day when I need to, which is most days. Now, job security, this I included just to try to be a little bit fair, I guess, towards corporate and PhD, but it's something that I don't care about a lot. If I have money and no job, that's fine. If I have money and no job, that's fine. And then career advancement, again, this is something I don't care about. I don't care about building a reputation within a company. And if I end up just being rich as a business owner, but don't really have like I don't know, that's not maybe the best example, but for me, I guess like the LinkedIn, if you've seen people's LinkedIns where they say like Harvard graduate, and then they say next thing is like assistant lawyer, associate lawyer, and then next step is senior partner, and then next step is firm owner. Like, wait, average screen time for an average of 23 hours a day? How is that possible? 23 hours a day. For an average of 23 hours a... What? That's what I envision when I see career advancement. That's not something that I care about. And so for each of these criterion, I decided how important it is to me. So entrepreneurial opportunity, 10, I care about it a lot. Financial compensation, 10, I care about it a lot. Innovation, 10, I care about this a lot. All the way down to career advancement, job security, don't really care about these. Now, for each of the rows in the matrix, so these are the items in the matrix, you want to decide, or for each of the columns, you want to list out the path. So no PhD, corporate, doing my PhD and then going into corporate, or doing my PhD and spinning off my research. For each of these criteria, I'm gonna list on a scale of 1 to 10 how much this criterion, how much this is present in that pathway. So if I do no PhD, it's because I'm going to be exploring, I'm going to be forging my own path. I'm going to be exploring and taking an entrepreneurial journey approach. And so 10 on entrepreneurial opportunity is 10. That's the whole purpose. For financial compensation, this one was a little bit tricky because, let's see, let me pull it up. Because it's not really decided. So what I actually ended up doing for that was, let's say it's 10 years and we don't really know what's going to happen, but I know I can grind. At least I can get my YouTube to a point where I'm making 80K through ads and anything else. So I know, maybe not immediately, but at some point, so over the next 7 years, on average, I'll have 80K. a year. So that's 80K times 0.7. So that's, and again, financial compensation is over a 10-year period. So 7 of those years, 80K. Let's say 2 million. And I actually, the way I approached this was a little bit iffy. Okay, actually, let me rephrase. So over the next 10 years, what are the chances of me making a certain amount? Oh, I might have messed up this number. Hold on. Yeah, so I did mess up this number, but it doesn't change the decision because it would only make my decision stronger for no PhD. But so we're looking at the next 10 years. How much am I going to have in profit at 10 years if I don't longer for no PhD? Yeah, so I did mess up. Oh, I might have messed up this number. Oh. So that's through grind. What I actually ended up doing for the whole purpose. For financial compensation, this one was a little bit tricky because, let's see, let me pull. So if I delete this, for compensation, this one was a little bit tricky because, let's see, let me pull. Oh, I might have messed up this number. Hold on. Yeah, so I did mess up this number, but it doesn't change the decision because it would only make my decision stronger for no PhD. But so we're looking at the next 10 years. This one was a little bit tricky because, let's see, let me pull. Oh, so we're looking at the next 10 years. We're looking at the next, but so because, let's see, let me pull. So we're looking at the next 10 years. How much am I going to have in profit at 10 years if I don't spend anything? So what it's supposed to be is, with 70% certainty, I'm going to have this amount. So this was assuming 80K each year. So it would be actually 800,000 times 70%, or 0.7. And then with 20%, that at the end, I'm going to have $2 million. Then with 9% chance, at the end of 10 years, I'm going to have $10 million. And then let's put in the chance of having a billion. So for the billion, I just calculated how many billionaires there are in America divided by the number of people in America. So it's actually a very, very small percentage, which is there. And so that calculates about $1.3 million I'll have in 10 years, which is actually fudged. It would actually be more like close to 2 million. And then for corporate, this was just following. Okay, so maybe I should take a step back and show here. So for corporate, 10 years, about $3 million. And then for corporate, this was just following. So for corporate, So for corporate, 10 years, about $3 million. Because we're in tech, we get paid on the lower end $2 million, and over the next 10 years, that's enough to go up several tiers. So around $3 million.
Oh,
PhD plus corporate, this is assuming I get just a PhD salary for the next 3 years, and after that, I'm making about $1 million a year, and this is best possible outcome. And then here's about $3 million. So for corporate, this was just following. So for corporate, 10 years, about $3 million. Because we're in tech, we get paid on the lower end.
Let me insert text, custom. That's not. What is all this? So that's the title. I don't know what this is. Text. So it's K year and font size. How do we change color? Oh, tracking object. $3 million. Because we're in tech, we get paid. Because we're in tech, we get paid on the lower end 2 million, and over the next 10 years, that's enough to go up several tiers. So around $3 million. PhD plus corporate, this is assuming I get just a PhD salary for the next 3 years, and after that I'm making about $1 million a year, and this is best possible outcome. And then PhD plus wound, we calculated this. It's about 1.2 to 4.2 million dollars. So on average, we're just going to do $3 million. So many. Let's see. So the range was possible outcomes. We have 2.4 to 6.8. Actually, 2.4 to 0.8 million. With average of 4. $4.60. 62 million. 2 to 4.2 million dollars. So on average, we're just going to do $3 million. So this is what we can expect. Didn't change the ranking though. Actually, 2.4. This, it's about 1.2 to 4.2 million dollars. So on average, we're just going to do $3 million. So this is what we can expect. Now we're gonna normalize this, and so by normalizing, I used ChatGPT I asked it to normalize it following a normal distribution, I believe. Which, I mean, there could have been better ways to normalize it, but the decision ended up going my way because we can see no PhD was still ranked really low on a scale 1 to 10. This is a 3.5. Well, all of the other decisions had a lot better financial opportunities. And even though this was the case, in my particular situation, this was strong enough to still come out as the best outcome. So if, in your case, if you see that that trying different normalization strategies for this can result in different outcomes, then think about which one is probably the best to use. Is strong enough to still come out as the best outcome. Better ways to normalize a normal distribution. I asked it to normalize it.
standardize, not normalize. Please standardize and scale from 1 to 10. A normal distribution, I believe. Which, I mean, there could have been better ways to normalize it, but the decision ended up going my way because we can see no PhD was still ranked really low on a scale 1 to 10. This is a 3.5, while all of the other financial opportunities. And even though this was the case, in my particular situation, this was strong enough to still come out as the best outcome. So if, in your case, if you see that trying different normalization strategies for this can result in different outcomes, then think about which one is probably the best to use. And yeah, you can just feed in these numbers to ChatGPT, ask it to normalize it. Yeah, so this is what I got for that. Now, for the rest of the other ones, this is just following what the process I described for entrepreneurial opportunity. For innovation, I know no PhD, I'm going to be limited by money a little bit, at least at the start. And if assuming some success eventually, I am going to be focused on innovation, so we're going to rank it at 7. Corporate, not so much innovation because I'll be focused on what they want me to do, but there is a chance that I get to work at the edge depending on the company's culture and the problems that I'm solving in there. If I do a PhD plus corporate, I'll be an expert at whatever I'm doing. So whatever company has hired me, it's likely because I'm gonna be working again as an expert in that field. So I'm probably gonna be working on an innovative project there. PhD plus wound, this is focusing on my current project. I wouldn't say it's as much innovative as it is impactful. It's already using technologies that are available, probably using it's not necessarily inventing new machine learning algorithms. It is adjusting some and maybe having some innovation, but not as much as these other areas. So I put it slightly below corporate and no PhD. Now, networking potential, again the same, autonomy, stress levels, flexibility, commuting time, so on. And so once you have these numbers, then you want to multiply each entry under a pathway by the criterion weight. So for no PhD, 10 times 10 is 100. So here we see 100. Then we have 3.52 times 10, 35.2. 7 times 10, 70. And so on. So just go down the column and multiply them out, and then you have these numbers. Do the same for the other ones, and then you end up with this final row. Now this final row is essentially telling you quantitatively how each meet your criteria. So we can see this score tells you relative to each other which is more likely to meet your criteria. And so no PhD had the highest score, followed very closely by PhD plus corporate, followed quite a bit away from, or having a slight gap, there's corporate, and then having an even larger gap is PhD plus wound. So here we can see clear decision, not necessarily clear, but sort of the two pathways that I really need to consider are these two, no PhD and PhD plus corporate, if I want to be most happy with my decision. And so this is when we have
have that, but we need to be even more thorough. So let's go through this sort of outcome, but we need to be even more. And so this is when we have that. If I want to be most happy with my decision.
1947. We're going to advantages. Quantitatively deciding, and then advantages versus disadvantages is qualitatively deciding.
And so this is when we have that, but we need to be even more thorough. So let's go through this sort of outcome and analyze the advantages and disadvantages of each to look at the qualitative aspects, because we already looked at the quantitative. We looked at what criteria we looked at what criteria we can put numbers to, but what about the things we can't put numbers to? So looking at
I think I finally realized why I have burps all the time. It's always when I have burps, it's because I'm eating fish cakes that my wife makes. It's good, but I think the fish cakes or the fish is what give me the burps, right? Fish burps are a thing.
So looking at the advantages and disadvantages for each pathway for PhD plus wound, the advantages were degree. Degree is kind of hard to put a number to. We already looked at financial compensation, so there's that. But like, it's hard to put a number to it, how much it's gonna impact our life. But on average, we can use financial compensation, but we already looked at that, and we want to look at the more qualitative aspects. So we're just going to add degree. We also know that PhD plus wound, there is some innovation, although it may not be necessarily cutting edge, it is impactful. Now the disadvantages for me of a PhD plus wound one of them would be funding. So currently the project is unfunded, and we're talking more from an academic standpoint. You need funding to pay for the tuition and to pay for living expenses as a PhD student, and to get other students to work on the project with you. You need, and so because of that, I'm also worried about finances. So I have to work as a TA, which means around 15 hours a week, typically maybe a little bit less, but that's another part. And then in addition to that, we're talking about a time commitment. So this means that we have to work on the PhD, or I have to work on the PhD for the next 3 years. And then after that, it's 10 years trying to get the company up and running, on average, from the other companies we looked at. And so if it fails, I have to start over. And that means, or what starting over means in my case, it's that I may not necessarily use the knowledge I obtained as a PhD for my next startup. And so starting over would be, now I have to learn the necessary skills to make the next startup. And so that's starting over. And that actually ties in with risk of specialization. So being an expert in a specific area, but not having it translate into anything. And then also bad logistics. So given that I'm going to be focused on TAing, not necessarily focused, but I have to divide my focus between TAing, applying for funding, managing 5 people, and if it fails, in 10 years, I'm going to be in my mid 30s, and so I'm going to be less likely to take risks if I don't have any sort of money to rely on. And I'm married, I may have kids at that point, so I'm not going to be able to support my family, and that's not something I want to do. I want to take my risks right now. And then some points that were no that do come up, but I don't think they influence the decision. I'm going to be an expert, but it may not be in an area that will be helpful for my next startups. Also, network. If I don't think I want to continue in healthcare because lots of barriers and I don't have sort of resources or capital to recruit a team and keep it going long enough. And yeah, that if I did continue with this project, I'd have a network in health and it going long enough. And if I did continue with this project, I'd have a network in healthcare, but that's not something that I would be able to use in the future if this project fails. Yeah, there's that. Looking at fails, looking at corporate, steady income, there's resources, networking, professional development. Disadvantages, less autonomy, there's bureaucracy, and limited entrepreneurial opportunity. That's corporate. Limited entrepreneurial opportunity. That's corporate, PhD plus corporate. So here, because I am an expert in my field, probably going to be recruited to work on something innovative. I'm going to have a steady income. Income is going to be a lot higher. I'll have resources. I'll be able to network, especially because I'm an expert. So, networking will be a lot more easier, I guess. Professional development, and then credibility of the PhD. The disadvantages is that as a PhD student, regardless of whether I continue in this project or in another project, I'm always going to have to try to find funding. So whether that means applying for grants for the project or applying for fellowships, it's something I'm going to have to actively spend time doing and doing it well because they're competitive. And because I have to find funding, in the meantime, I'll also have to worry about how I'm going to finance my PhD, and so that means TAing, working again a minimum of 15 hours a week. And yeah, and in addition to that, as a PhD student, and then going into corporate, that means whatever entrepreneurial opportunities I want to pursue, I won't be able to until around 11 years from now, because 3 years for my PhD, focusing on becoming an expert, and then 8 years learning the ropes in industry and really becoming an industry voice. And then at that point, I can sort of have a pick of the top talent and try to recruit them for whatever startup I want to branch off into. But it's a very long time horizon. Now the other option, no PhD. The advantages are I get to immediately start an entrepreneurship. I have full autonomy. I get to decide what I'm doing, which may not always be the best thing, but full autonomy. Agility, I can pivot quickly and take advantages of whatever opportunities I see the same day, basically. Potential for high reward. Something that I've been noticing is there's lots of startups, especially now, that you don't really need a lot to get going. I've seen YC startups that just have an app that you can probably make in less than a month. And yeah, they in less than a month you can get probably like 2 months. You can 2 months on the worst case. 2 months you can make an app, make a video, get some initial customers, and make an application to YC, and you already funded $500,000. Disadvantages is that there's lots of risk. There's lots of people trying to do this. It's always uncertain what's gonna happen. Competition might see what you're doing, try to copy you. Income variability as a result. There's no guarantees at all, and resource constraint. Um, because I'm trying to make my own money, and because income is variable, it's always a question of what to spend when should you invest in more resources or not. So that's looking at the advantages and disadvantages of the decisions from the weighted matrix. And so now that we have the outcomes from the weighted matrix and we know the disadvantages and advantages of each of the pathways, now it's of the decisions from the weighted matrix. And so now 2807 summary. So we have the outcomes from the weighted matrix and we know the disadvantages and advantages of each of the pathways. Now it's just a question of putting it all together and analyzing it. So to put it all together, I made this sort of summary, like 4 or 5 paragraph report on something so it can be something I can refer to in the future. And it's also very helpful if I do end up going into corporate or somewhere else where people are going to be asking, why did I drop out? What was the decision behind that? This is going to be something that shows that I actually put thought into making my decision. Because there are going to be questions. As a PhD dropout, people are immediately going to wonder, was it too difficult? Couldn't handle the stress? Are you a quitter? So it's all valid questions. If you're going to be working in a startup, you want to know sort of your team's faults and know their flaws and where things can go wrong. And so this is a very valid concern, I guess, that I've prepared to address, and this is sort of my way of doing it for myself, but also preparing for future questions. And so for me, this all started off because I realized I'm at a point in my journey where I really need to clear up my goals and make sure that I'm pursuing a path that aligns with these goals, because too often at the end of the day, especially when I'm sort of working on sprints for my PhD, I'm often wondering, is this something that I actually want to do long term? Because it doesn't quite feel like it's aligning with my internal compass. And so that's what started this off. The first thing we did to analyze that decision was, let's look at the 10-year compensation. So we can see no PhD had the least amount of compensation. Corporate had a little bit more. PhD plus corporate, a little bit more. PhD plus wound is comparable to corporate. And then the one limitation of this summary is that it's only limited to 10 years. What the next 30 years look like is completely unknown. We don't know if, for example, PhD plus corporate would have been the right decision. Maybe having a PhD and then going into corporate, learning the ropes, I become part of the, OpenAI mafia. So that's a reference to PayPal.
mafia. So the right decision, maybe having a PhD. What the next 30 years look like is completely unknown. We don't know if, for example, PhD plus corporate would have been the right decision. Maybe having a PhD and then going into corporate, learning the ropes, I become part of the, I don't know, open AI mafia. So that's a reference to PayPal mafia, where Elon and lots of other people worked on PayPal, and then they all branched off and they all sort of became very successful in their own rights. So maybe that could have been something that happened. Or maybe PhD plus wound, let's say I learned the ropes, handled all the stress, went into wound, tried to spin off. Maybe it worked, maybe it didn't work. Found another healthcare company, and because I learned the ropes and was managed to handle managed to walk in sort of the difficult area that is healthcare, I found another healthcare problem that was worth billions. That could very much be a valid point for this. Or corporate, let's say maybe I'm the next Steve Ballmer. Well, I don't know if that's a thing people would say to be proud of, but some people might be, so I don't know. And then no PhD, let's say, I don't know, I make the next YC company that is a unicorn, $1 billion. So each of these in their own right in 30 years can be something completely unexpected, or they can easily have been a fail. We can't know, but that's what we're looking at, and we're trying to just make a decision that aligns with our compass at the moment. And so to add more depth to this decision, we're looking at aspects that are qualitative that we can decide on. And so we did the weighted decision matrix, and this is what came of it. The highest two decisions were no PhD and PhD plus corporate. And so analyzing why this one was first in the lowest position, it's because it requires a considerable time commitment. It's looking at a 10 to 14-year horizon, so I'm in my mid-30s. There's lots of financial uncertainties, and there's high stress, which is actually having an impact on my health. Like, it's very quantifiable how the stress is impacting my health, and I'll just say it's blood pressure. So so this is the first thing that we're going to rule out because of these factors and the score, considering these factors basically summarize it. Then the next thing is that now we're going to basically analyze these two, because we can make the observation that no PhD is not necessarily just a one-way door. Like, I take the pathway to no PhD, and it prevents me from doing any other outcome, and that's not true, because I can always go into corporate, because there's so many different areas in tech, and because in my no PhD, I'm going to be learning mobile app development, web development, and machine learning. I can always go into corporate as a safety net. Let's say in 2 years, if no PhD, I haven't been able to make anything myself, nothing is happening, make the decision, go into corporate, and at least that way we can afford a home, and I can pay for the things we need, and I can start getting us a retirement plan. I don't know. So that's one observation. The second observation is that PhD plus corporate, this one seems like a cool option, because it means I'm an industry expert and I'm learning the ropes. So it's structured and it has clear stages. But the one huge downside is it has a lot of significant delay
to entrepreneurship, I'm basically going to be spending 10 to 14 years, or around 11 years, studying and then learning the ropes. And so entrepreneurship doesn't really come in until I decide to branch off. And at that point, I'm going to have to be learning on the spot, and it can make it. Well, the bigger factor is that I'm going to be delaying entrepreneurial opportunity. So, given those observations, I wanted to add in a little bit of a personal perspective to my decision. So, since I was a kid, I've always been interested in entrepreneurship and innovation. They really go hand in hand because you can have innovation, but without being able to market it and find a way to make it sustainable, make it something that you can continue to produce. If it's a product or service, then it's not going to stay around for long. So entrepreneurship hand in hand with innovation. And I've been inspired by figures like Tony Stark, Thomas Edison, Elon Musk. And these people I think are good examples of innovation and entrepreneurship. And so, let's see. Dream of forging my own path, navigate the complexities. And so adding that to the fact that now that I'm doing my PhD, I feel stress in a way that it's not productive. It's not fueling me and it's not driving me forward. And at the end of the day, I just feel restless because I didn't quite work on what I wanted to. And so, so the stress of academic pursuits, I'm deciding to leave my PhD. That's the summary of, or the final decision of this process. Time for me to embrace my entrepreneurial journey because it resonates with my ambitions that I've had as a kid and it aligns with my dreams. And I think that's an overview of the summary or of the process that I went through. And I think one thing I want to add is any one decision is valid as long as it's sustainable and aligns with your goals and ambition. Because when I mentioned earlier, when I said that, where was it? Oh yeah, here, that this is limited to 10 years. In 30 years, who knows what could have happened? I could have been a late entrepreneur, followed this pathway, really learned the ins and outs of healthcare entrepreneurship, and started something that I was in a unique position to, and it ended up being $1 billion company. That's very valid. And some people may be in a better position to pursue this. Maybe they didn't have to take loans like I did. And maybe they're not worried about kids. They're not worried about their whatever position they're in. They're in a much better position to take on this, and it's more of their calling. They care about healthcare this much that they can go through it. It's their calling. Very valid. Other people, they want to be an industry voice. They want to be working on innovative stuff, and they care more about research. Maybe entrepreneurship is on the horizon, but it's not something that doesn't immediately call to them. It's something that they want to do right now. Very valid. So lots of different pathways. Each has its own trade-off, but we're looking for the pathway that meets my criteria and is something that I feel fueled and passion to go through. Because no PhD, or despite that no PhD has so much risk, the passion I have for it is completely willing to handle the income variability, the risk of it, the chance that I may fail 5, 6 times, but I know somehow I'm gonna find a way to make it through. That's something I can put up with. And that's my path. That may not be for everyone, and their path is not for me. So that's sort of my summary. So just going over this from summary. $40, $49. So just going over this from an overview, there's something we're considering multiple paths. What are the different pathways? Let's be clear on them and specifies the best possible outcome for each. Not necessarily the outliers, but the average best possible outcome. And so in this case, for career decisions, it's typically financial compensation. That's the easiest to review or to get figures for. Now, in addition to financial compensation, we want to consider other criteria. So for career transition or education, deciding between education and career, there are criteria that you care about. So these you can list, assign a weight to them. Now for each pathway, specify how much of that criteria is a part of that pathway. And so once you have that, you can multiply the criteria weight by the rating from 1 to 10 of how much that criteria impacts it. And then you have these numbers. So then you can just sum these up and you have scores for how likely or how much each pathway aligned. Scores. Okay, so let's see. You have scores for each pathway, and these are relative to each other. And the pathway with the highest score is probably the best outcome. But there are other things we have to consider that are qualitative that are not considered in this weighted decision matrix. And then also relative to each other, you can see these are just 5 apart. And then corporate is a little bit behind, but then this is a worse decision. So with this, you can already start to make a decision like this. We can start to see why it's may not be the best decision. And from these numbers here, we can see for each of these, it ranks slightly lower than corporate even, which is like a baseline. So we'd prefer corporate before this. But anyways, once we have those, the weighted decision outcomes, then for each, come up with advantages, disadvantages. And this should try not to be as much of an overlap with the weighted decision matrix. So you want to look for aspects that are more qualitative that you can't necessarily consider. For example, bad logistics. How can I consider that by the time I'm 30, I want to be somewhat stable enough that I can pursue entrepreneurship for a full time? And once you have those advantages and disadvantages, let's summarize everything. Let's go through tenure compensation, go through the different scores, and then use the advantages and disadvantages to start to rule them out. And so that's what I did here. Made my final decision, adding a little bit of a perspective to make my decision on what I think can fuel me the longest and that I am most comfortable in. Yeah. Hopefully this works out for you. And if you found this helpful, please subscribe. It helps it helps me on this new path of entrepreneurship where I'm not sure where it's going to take me. In fact, my next video is probably going to be 6 hours working, probably even longer than 6 hours, making a plan of how I'm going to get to 5K in passive income to try to support myself so I can have some longevity in entrepreneurship and that I'm able to fail. And so I might pursue, I don't know, apps or services that can give me that 5K in passive income. Maybe they're not as innovative, but they address a pain point and give me that 5K in passive income. So yeah, please subscribe. It helps if you found this helpful. Any other thoughts or comments, please let me know in the comment section. And if you found this comfortable in, yeah, hopefully this works out for you. And if you found this helpful, please subscribe. 44. Dope. So now we just render it. Wait, do we need to? How do we render selection? Render off. I don't know if that's needed, but it seemed like the right thing to do. Yeah, so I'll just render this and make it a YouTube video. I probably won't write the post to Reddit today. I'll write it tomorrow. So we'll market it tomorrow. And once we do that, then on to the next video, how we're going to get to 5K. See y'all the next day, tomorrow.